This is the IEP Reflection Project for Toni-Marie taking classes at Colorado Christian University, the Advanced Special Needs Strategies class. So first I'm going to introduce, first by definition, the special needs students. And then what inclusive classrooms are. And then we're going to talk about strategies and the reason that all three of these things fit together are first, we have special needs students who are students with exceptional education needs due to a disability or learners who are culturally and or linguistically diverse or have some other special needs. And these students are put into inclusive classrooms, which are classrooms in which special needs students participate in a regular lesson with their non-disabled classmates. So inclusive classrooms is exactly what it says. We have learners of all levels in one classroom. And so the special needs students are given an IEP. Through testing, they are identified as special needs, and they have an IEP in place. The IEP gives us modifications and accommodations to help set these students up for success. The strategies that are used for special needs students can benefit all students, ELL students, and even some of your visual learners that may struggle with other types of lesson delivery. But in the end, all students deserve our attention and best teaching practices and strategies that will benefit them to their fullest extent. Simply said, we want to set them up for success. So the student that we're going to be looking at and the strategies that I use for him is a student we'll identify as JM. He is a 9-year-old male who is in the 3rd grade. He was held back in kindergarten, has little educational support at home, and has a little bit of a trying home life. The IEP that he has in place is for reading and mathematics. He is at a 1st grade reading level and a math 1st grade level as tested by iReady. So we're going to focus on the math support that I give him and that the special education department at our school gives him. His specific goals are that he will be able to increase his math computation 75% on a 3rd grade math assessment. His accommodations are that he is given extra time on tasks, repeated directions, one-step directions, breakdown tasks, use of dividers for focus, test dividers, allow materials to be read aloud whenever possible, and provide visual examples and models whenever possible. How I used to teach JM is first I should say that I have a long history and a great relationship with JM. I met him as a kindergartner. I was a volunteer at the school, then I was a para in kindergarten, then I was a special ed long-term sub, and now I'm his 3rd grade teacher. So I've had exposure to JM for over the last 4 years, and he and I know each other well. We get along very well, and these are the things that I know about him. I know that he gets easily frustrated. About 2nd grade, it became evident to him that he was SPED, and he identified what SPED means. He has a better grasp on what it means now. But when he was first identified as SPED, his parents equated that as to being mentally retarded. So we had to do a little damage control and education for both parents and grandparents and JM so that he understood that being labeled as SPED did not mean that he was retarded. So patience is the key with him as well. I use kind of a sci-fi term that he's an empath. He is very empathetic to other people. He can pick up when people are upset. I believe this is a product of his disruptive home life. And he picks up when people are upset and he tries to be a people pleaser. And so it's very key in the lesson delivery that he doesn't see the teacher getting upset, or if he's working in a partner group, that his partner or his group partners are not getting upset with him. Breaking down the lesson into small bite-sized bits are the best way to keep him from getting overwhelmed. Praise when he understands. If I could bottle the feeling that he gets when you praise him or when he gets an answer right in front of a bunch of people, he that is the best self-esteem booster in the world. And if I could bottle it and give him a dose of it every day, that would be great. I also use a lot of visuals with JM because his reading is so low. Visuals really work best with him. So the first strategy that I started to use this year after our studies was explicit instruction, keeping a specific concept for him. One of the things I discovered with him is not to mention other concepts until he has mastered them. I'll give you an example. When we started on division, I told the rest of the class that if they knew their multiplication times tables, then division was going to be a piece of cake for him. Well, obviously, GAM has not mastered those multiplication tables. So when I was giving him some one-on-one time, I gave him a multiplication times table, fact table, and gave that to him. And I said, I want you to use this while we're studying for division. I want you to keep trying to memorize those multiplication facts. But in the meantime, while we're working on classwork, I want you to use this to see where it links to division. And that definitely opened him up to a whole new concept of learning. Highly structured. He needs specific time during the lesson to focus with him. So that not only that he needs that structure in the lesson plan for me to come back, he depends on that one-on-one time. He knows that he can ask questions during that time, and he knows that the whole class won't hear his questions because he might feel like he's being silly or stupid. And so he definitely needs that time. And then when we are in that structured time, he's the carefully sequenced manner in which I deliver the lesson to him. And I actually provide him with an outline so he can see how we're proceeding through the program, and he can point back and say, hey, I didn't understand what you said right here. So with JM, it's all about finding the holes in his math house foundation. I always use that analogy with my students, that your math house is like a foundation, and if you have any holes, we have to fix those holes before we build on. So that's where that multiplication table with division definitely helped him. For strategy number 2, I do use co-teaching. Actually, that has come up within the last week. His SPED teacher, who usually comes in during his first block in his reading and writing, is now coming into his second block, which is with me, and she comes in and we work on math together with him. So that was all about working with her schedule and her workload, scheduling lesson or sending her lesson plans ahead of time, and collaborating to discover the best strategy on what would be the best way to teach him. She has over 25 years of learning or teaching experience, and I've worked with her for several years, and I really enjoy her. And then part of that is I have a very small classroom. I'm in a modular classroom, and is carving out a place for the two of them to work one-on-one so that they can have very frank conversations and that JM can ask her very specific content questions. The evidence-based strategy number 3 is to create lessons based on themes or big ideas, making content applicable to his life, linking his real-world interests to math that is being taught, and having him think of a situation where he'll use math again. The example I use is that the kid loves monster trucks, and so I was able to ask him to draw me 4 monster trucks with 6 wheels apiece and count up the wheels, and we were able to work on multiplication that way. But he was very engaged, never got frustrated, and the biggest highlight of his day is he got to draw monster trucks in math class. So his strategy number 4 is to provide him a copy of the strategies that I have in their simplest form. I have lots of anchor charts and things like that around the room, but I've created smaller versions of them for him on index cards, and he has added that to his toolbox, which sits in his math folder. Lots of kids have their tools that they can use on assessments, and they use these things in their toolbox, and they're allowed to use them. They know they're allowed to use them, and so he's certainly not pointed out or singled out because he goes and he gets his toolbox of things. Everybody does. But the other thing is making sure that he is using the strategies. Very oftentimes he will get a test in front of him and sort of go into panic mode and forget that he has that toolbox. So making sure that he has that. And then active engagement, of course, during class is a big deal, for him to be actively engaged in class. He's not a kid that's always going to raise his hand because he's usually been wrong, but he's certainly getting the grasp of a lot of things we're teaching now. And so making sure he is actively engaged in the class. Another thing that I use is a relaxation technique. And that has helped all of the students to relax about math and to kind of focus and get centered on the lesson. And finally, the last strategy is using visuals, 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 and more visuals. Pictures and words help him. His reading level is low, and he avoids reading at all costs. And so visuals so the picture and the word with our strategies and where things go in the classroom and things like that have definitely helped him. It's also very helpful for the several ELL students that I have. And I've noticed that as he and they connect the words with the picture, they start to understand the words faster. And he'll start seeing those words in other text and other content and say, oh, I know what that says because it's on the picture right over here. So finally, how I teach JM now. There's so many tools and so little time, but the big ones that I use for him are using visuals, using strategies that I noted before, and making that personal set of strategies for JM. He has really appreciated having that personal set that he can hold and hold in his hand and make sure he sees that. Encouraging JM to be an advocate for himself. We have a post-lesson conference time with me where he can rate himself on a 0 to 5, a fist to 5. How are you getting this? And then I also have him make sure that he indicates where he's not getting it and what he's not getting. He usually has been able to identify exactly where he's not getting this. Making the lessons personally connect with his life is key. I tend to make all my math lessons I connect those to real world experiences. I don't ever want a kid, of course, this is third grade. It's not calculus, but I don't want the kids to walk out and say, I have no idea why they will learn that. When will I ever use that math? I don't want them to ever say that. So I always connect it with something that is real and you will use this in your future. And accommodations for taking tests. I have offered for him when I put a test down in front of him, I have said, if you don't finish this, I don't want you to panic. I want you to work slow and steady and know that you have the option to either come in at recess or you can stay after school. He actually lives across the street from the school, loves coming into my classroom, loves having that one-on-one time. So I have given him that option because I don't necessarily want him to miss recess either. But I've given him that option that if he wants to come in before or after school, that I will be here and he can have all the time in the world to take a test. Also to sit down and read the test to him, especially word problems, has been very key for him. So I hope you've enjoyed my presentation. I've certainly learned a lot from this class, and I have enjoyed reflecting on the different strategies that I can use for not only JM, but for all of the different IEP and ELL and all the different varied kinds of learning styles that I have in my class. It's been a pure joy, and I thank you for all your help.